6 o'clock on the nose, and you're bang on time for Morning Prime. It is the 30th of May 2023. Can you believe it? Time really flies. May just checked in and now it's checking out. And we are also taking a stock of how that month has been politically as far as the bipartisan talks is concerned. Remember, today is a big day where we have Azimio La Umoja that will be holding their PJ meeting. And this is where Raila Odinga will be giving his direction moving forward as far as the bipartisan talks is concerned, which right now has collapsed because of the toing and froing from both divides, seeking some contentious issues, especially that of IBC, and also on the contentious issue of finance bill as well. But it seems this is a continuing debate, and I know we've had a bellyful of it so far, but it will continue until we see how that will pan out next week when the National Assembly resumes from recess. That will be June the 6th, and that also will be the hot table that, or the hot topic on the table that will be debated in Parliament. I'm joined this morning by Senator Boni Khalwale, who is the Majority Whip at the Senate, also the Senator of Kakamega. We'll be joined by Mwaura as well, who is the CAS that is in the office of Principal Cabinet Secretary Makali Davadi, and we'll be joined as well this morning by Dr. Makali Mulu, who is the Member of Parliament for Kitui Central. So we have a lot that we will be discussing today, and of course, you know the drill. You can head over to our Twitter handle. KTN News is our Twitter handle, where you can chime in, share your contribution, fire your questions, and we'll be having a handy opportunity to actually discuss that much later in the course of the program. But for now, as always, we put this horse into full run by looking at the dailies. We begin with the bold paper, where the Standard is holding this splash for you this morning. Ruto faces taxes, rebellion among Mount Kenya MPs. Already there are murmurs, backbears, of course, interpretation regarding this in Mount Kenya, and everyone is eagerly waiting to see how that will pan out in the House. And of course, Azimio La Umoja has been particularly intent to make sure that the voting will be publicly displayed to see who will be voting for or against the finance bill so far. Ruto faces taxes, rebellion among Mount Kenya MPs, hustle plan. Elected leaders from the Deputy President's backyard are an easy lot after attempts to make them embrace new tax measures have fallen flat. Locals instead want taxes reduced to make life more affordable. And this story continues on page 4 of the Standard this morning. And it says, we are not in the era where the government word was final. In this century, we need consultations, not just thumping. That is what Gathoni Wamushomba is saying. And so, with the MPs in the Rift Valley, the MPs in Mount Kenya, of course, we know how they will be voting. Everyone is eagerly waiting to see how this will be voted in the House as well. Africa's largest economy in hands of Bola Tinubu. He was sworn in yesterday. And of course, just after swearing in, he's already scrapped the fuel subsidy in Nigeria. And you can see the picture here. This is President Bola Tinubu waving to the crowd after taking oath of office as the 16th president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at the Eagle Square in Abuja. Tinubu took the oath of office alongside Kashim Shettima, who was sworn in as Nigeria's 15th vice president in a colorful ceremony presided over by Nigeria's Chief Justice Olukayode Ariwola. That story continues inside the Standard this morning, looking at the world news. Let's see what we have on top here at the teaser. County bosses fight at expense of service delivery. That is a story that you want to follow on page 14 and 15 of the Standard today. And Bank OK's Nairobi-Nakuru Highway loan. This is on the business pages of a Standard this morning. Also remember, we have the Financial Standard that comes in handy for you every Tuesday. And you can get all the wiser as far as financial literacy is concerned. EPL season had a bit of everything. And you can follow all that in the sports pages of the Standard this morning. Let's move on and we see what we have also on the side. The hacking claim puts Kenya at center of US-China Cold War. That is a story that you want to follow inside the Standard on page 2. Incident last week cast a spotlight on the high-stakes competition between firms in the scramble for multi-billion shilling infrastructure tenders in Kenya. This is on page 2. Ruto hints at visa-free entry for Africans. That is a story that you can follow on page 27 yesterday. Of course, this meeting was held at Safari Park, where the African free trading, that is AfTA, was being shaken into place, and how we should harness that tyranny of numbers, I should say, that we have as African with intra-trade. Can we steamroll that, since now we have AfTA being launched and in place right now? And he's hinting at visa-free entry for Africans. And you can follow this story on page 27 of the Standard this morning. Let me show you what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation quickly. And this is what you're waking up to, the front page of the Daily Nation. A fund for every president, then loss of billions. A fund for every president, then loss of billions. Populist, that is what the flag is putting it here. It says, past audits have raised questions of the use of taxpayers' cash. Past audits have raised questions of the use of taxpayers' cash. And the faces of the former president and the current one also splashed here on the front page of the Daily Nation. Mwai, these are the monies that were splashed during his regime. Women Enterprise Fund, Youth Enterprise Development Fund, Land Settlement Fund, Rural Enterprise Fund, National Humanitarian Fund, also Uhuru Kenyatta Uwezo Fund. We have National Government Affirmative Action Fund, that is NGAF. Let me go back to Mwai, that was the figure given, 3.3 billion shillings. The Auditor General reported in 2019-2020 that the Women Enterprise Fund was still owed 3.37 billion shillings, out of which 80, it says here, 80 million shillings was doubtful at the time. Also, we have 4.6 billion shillings. By June 2021, more than 4.6 billion shillings reportedly lent by the Uwezo Fund to groups of women, youth, and people with disabilities across the country remain unpaid despite the expiration of the repayment period. Also, we can look at William Ruto, 9 billion shillings. This is the Hustler Fund and the Housing Fund. 9 billion shillings, the amount the government injected into the Hustler Fund within 2 months of its launch in December 2022, some 18 million Kenyans were expected to borrow from the initiative. The story continues inside the Daily Nation. And we have also the sub-headline reading, Wasteful. President Ruto is continuing a tradition by his predecessors, Uhuru Kenyatta and Mwai Kibaki, to create funds to provide solutions to socio-economic challenges. However, most of the funds have had duplicative roles, targeting the same populations, and have also had fundamental problems with the management, leading to losses and wastage, as accountability reports show. And you can follow this story, as I've mentioned, on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. On top here, looking at the teaser, Generation Z, dress code is king according to them. They care less about work, money, or current affairs. This is according to a new report from Aga Khan University, and you can follow the story there on page 12 of the Daily Nation. They don't really care a fig about work, money, or current affairs. Media owners are warning they will lose 2 billion shillings if finance bill is passed. And this is a story that you want to follow on page 8 of the Daily Nation. Media owners warn they will lose 2 billion shillings if finance bill is passed. And so we have unions joining this particular fray, the hue and cry that we've heard from the public regarding the finance bill so far. So media voices also, they've lent their voice on that particular cry. CIMCS vote 38-1 to kick out Deputy Governor. That is on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. Now, extreme weather to worsen. Be warned. Kenya food, of course, extreme weather to worsen Kenya's food crisis. This is according to UN. Acute food insecurity is likely to worsen in Kenya, and 18 hunger hotspots covering 22 countries. A United Nations Outlook report for June to November is warning, and you can follow the story on page 14 of the Daily Nation this morning. A healthy nation comes in handy for you, smart business as well, inside the Daily Nation. Raila meets MPs as Kenya Kwanza moves to save talks. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga will today chair a parliamentary group meeting of the coalition, whose resolution could reignite his clash with President William Ruto. This even as it emerged that the government is willing to heed to the opposition's 4 irreducible minimums to save the suspended bipartisan talks. Today marks the end of Mr. Odinga's 6-day ultimatum for the Kenya Kwanza side to address their major concerns. And the coalition had requested for preliminary action on the cost of living, preservation of the electoral agencies, poll servers, also suspension of the IBC selection panel, and a cessation of interference with Azimio affiliate parties. This story continues on page 6 of the Daily Nation. This is how it looks. Let's move on to see People Daily. Unions in strike. Threat over tax. Civil servants oppose bill. Labour movement representing government workers sent petition to opposition MPs asking them to reject finance bill over housing levy, even as they warn that they will paralyze services if Parliament passes. If Parliament passes it, and you have the story on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. Already you can see protesters here. This is some of the unions' contentious taxes that is being protested here. Is a housing fund, NAT, nurses, and other public sectors workers unions oppose 3% levy, saying it will cause conflict between those with and without jobs. NHIF deductions, workers' representatives say this deduction will only fund corruption, but want employer to pay a shilling for a shilling. And also 35% tax on big pay. Workers now want this reduced to 25% because salaries have not been raised in 6 years. So those are the pertinent concerns and salient issues that are being raised by the union so far. On top here, we can see niceties being exchanged, and this is Uhuru Kenyatta. This is why I backed Raila. Ex-president reveals why he opposed Kenya's winner-take-all nature of politics ahead of handing over power fit in Nigeria. And this was happening yesterday with the inauguration of the new president. Churches move away from investing in schools, hospitals to venture into real estate. This is diversifying their portfolio. And you can follow the story on page 16 of the People Daily this morning. Haji found 17 graft case files wanting. Haji found 17 graft case files wanting. Now, you can read all the details there on page 2. And MCA's vote to eject Orengo deputy in Rao. That is a story that is well splashed out for you on page 2 of the People Daily this morning. Shakahola, Raila abwaga Ruto. This is what is the headline here. Mahakama ya mpokeza rais pigo kwa kusimamisha shughuli za kamati ya kuchunguza vifo vya kidini Kilifi. That is a flag there. And it says kimenuka. Koti ya kubaliana na maoni ya Raila kuhusu uhalali wa rais kuteua kamati hiyo, mbali na kudai kuwa kiongozi wa nchi aliingilia uhuru wa mahakama alipomteua Jaji Lesit kuongoza kamati hiyo. That is the story that you want to follow on page 2 of Taifa Leo this morning. Raila apanga mapambano yake upya. You can follow the story on page 3, and of course we'll be there on the ground to put out our ears and keep our eyes peeled to make sure we get the right information for you to relay on this particular parliamentary group meeting that Azimio will be holding today in the morning. Mashoga Uganda kusota jela maisha yote. That is a story that you can follow on page 8. Mashoga Uganda kusota jela maisha yote. That is a new development with the anti-homosexuality bill that was assented to by the president of Uganda yesterday, and has drawn, of course, sharp reactions from the international community rallying for the human rights that is enshrined in the United Nations Human Rights article. You can follow the story inside Taifa Leo today. Let's buckle down to some business where state is eyeing telco profits in tighter dominance rules. This is what we have on the front page of the Business Daily. Draft fair competition regulations get ICT ministers nod. Past rules were not explicit on market power abuse. That is the story that you want to follow there on the front page of the Business Daily. And this is a story by Kefa Mwaura, who is saying the Communication Authority of Kenya will start scrutinizing prices telecoms operators charge in relation to their profits when deciding abuse of market dominance in proposed changes to competition regulations. You can read the rest of the details there on page 2 of the Business Daily. Kenya reverse push by African nations to ditch the dollar. Kenya reverse push by African nations to ditch the dollar. And this is just following also a trend that is picking up in the world with de-dollarization and people moving to other reserves as well. You can follow that story inside the Business Daily. Passport printer breaks down again. Foreign investors snap up 5 local microfinance bank and safari hotels to tap into ecotourism fund. That is a story that you want to follow on page 14 of the Business Daily this morning. In Tanzania, government is speaking out on new agricultural trade rules. That is another story that you want to follow inside the Citizen, happening in Tanzania. And VP warns council of misuse of funds. SCT wants expeditious distribution of fertilizer. That story on page 3 of the Citizen. If you're waking up in Tanzania, we have the East African Al-Shabaab attack Uganda. 6 answers officials describe as sad and unfortunate news of deadly ambush in Somali base. And power play, we can see President Yoweri Museveni and Tanzania's Samia Suluhu Hassan at Kikagati in Isingiro district, Uganda, where they commissioned a joint hydropower project on May 25th, 2023. All right, China Daily is holding this for us this morning. Xi, speed up modernization of education. General Secretary stresses role of reform, innovation in development of sector, and also China to send fast civilian into space. China to send fast civilian into space. Remember also their aircraft, one of the maiden aircraft has been also launched in China. And that story, you can read it also inside the China Daily. And extended term, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his wife Emine Erdogan, how they can be seen here waving to supporters at the presidential palace at Ankara. You can read the rest of the details there on page 3 of the China Daily this morning. And of course, we shall be showing you the rest of international publications there. Time magazine looking at the future of medicine. But for now, that will be running on the split as we continue pace with the conversation. Allow me to introduce Boni Khalwale, who is the senator of Kakamega, also the majority whip in the Senate, to tell us where he has been. It's been a long time since he graced our screens here on KTN News. And just to thank him, because I know most of the times he's actually in Moshinani. Good to see you, sir. How are you? Good morning.
Thank you. I'm well.
Yes.
Long time no see.
Long time no see. I think
Yes,
your schedule
but I'm
now
still
really,
alive.
yeah, your schedule really works against me nowadays.
No.
Because you're always in the counties when I'm calling you up. Oh, now I'll be traveling here on Monday.
It's because all politics is local.
All politics is local.
Yes.
All politics is local.
Local.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
You're warming up with a cup of tea as well. Dr. Makali, Mulu, good to see you as well.
Good to see you.
Yes, yeah. Yesterday I know you were busy in
Yeah.
the finance committee.
With the budget.
With the budget. How is it panning out?
Coming up well, although quite difficult in terms of agreeing on the figures. Your budget is sharing, finance is raising the revenue. So you can see where the problem is.
So the numbers are not really lining up.
With all this opposition to the finance bill, we are not sure whether our expenditure side will balance. And it's serious. Because if you don't raise the money, if you reduce any of the taxes, then it affects the other side, the expenditure side.
So the taxes have to...
we are saying this, what you want to spend, so you must raise that money either locally or you must borrow, either of the two. So if you are not able to raise locally, then you increase the borrowing. And Kenyans have said we don't want to borrow anymore. It's not easy. It's not easy.
But should we have been there? Because looking at the previous budget and this, reading also the budgetary positional statement that we had, I think the current administration has also increased with almost 500 billion shillings to the previous budget that we had.
Just about that, because the other one was 3.6. This one, if you leave out the repayment of the loans, that is repaying the principal, it's still around 3.6. But if you bring in the issue of repaying the principal, it goes to about 4.4 trillion.
4.4 trillion shillings.
So it's not easy.
All right. So it's crossed over to 4.4.
Yeah, once you bring the, normally repayment of principals, you don't count it as part of additional borrowing. But then that's why when you're budgeting, you normally leave it out. But the budget is still around 3.6 trillion. Yeah, just not going beyond that.
All right. Boni Khalwale, what do you think? Because I was watching also reactions that are coming from Mashinani and you at Navaholo as well, and you were trying to talk to the crowd, and they didn't want to hear none of this taxes, especially when you're talking about a housing levy, where you're telling them it's not what you're being told. You should actually be keen to get the understanding behind the housing levy. And they were shutting you down.
Yeah, it is all about leadership. You cannot say you are a leader or claim leadership if you are not prepared to break new ground. Every financial year, and I've been around, I have seen the Minister of Finance for every president, Mwai Kibaki, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Ruto, the presidents under whom I've been able to work. I've seen them break new ground in the sense that how do we do it better so that we spend more, hopefully on development and job creation. As my brother has said, there's no shortcut. The government spends money,
Yes.
and that money is not sourced from the president mortgaging his own life, selling his companies, selling his properties, but it is raised through two ways. You either impose tax or you borrow. That's all. And the moment you borrow, you go to a button which Kenyans today are not prepared to hear leaders pressing. Namely, they are saying the weight of the public debt is too heavy to bear. There are those who believe that Uhuru borrowed too much. So it's an area you're not going to rush into, although definitely government must go there. The second one is taxation. I have never, for the years I've had budget being read, I've never seen a year where imposition of budget was received with adulation. Members of the public always say, oh, the price on this has been raised, the price on that has been raised. And therefore, this kind of reaction we are hearing is perfectly in order, is perfectly normal. In fact, under the new constitution, Daktari, I take it as a public participation. The public is participating in the law of making the finance bill. So we should listen to them. It is up now to members of parliament to ensure that they are not speaking in public fora. They are not speaking in media stations like we are doing now, but they go and sit in committees of parliament to speak to each budget line so that it is seen to meet what I would call the irreducible two minimums. The first minimum is that budget must be seen to create jobs. And the second is that I hope that in this budget, we are going to spur manufacturing and specifically local production.
But it really flies in the face of what the Kenya Association of Manufacturers have been decrying, that if this particular bill goes as it is right now, it will adversely affect manufacturing sector, and they will have no options but actually to lay off workers. So if you're talking about job creation, isn't it now flipping the coin on the other side with the steamrolling of this finance bill? Because this is what, and you've heard also from the Media Owners Association as well, almost 65 out of the 70 unions that we have, they've come to the fore to starkly be against this particular bill.
Yes. The issue being raised by the Association of Manufacturers, we need as leaders of this country to tell the country that let the finance bill be read, and you see what we have spoken on various budget lines in terms of manufacturing, just to give you a bird's eye view, if you're going to raise tax on imported cement, what does that mean? It means that local cement will be cheaper than imported cement, and therefore you'll be spurring cement production. Similarly, when you impose tax on imported iron material, it means that the local production, mabadi rollings, whatever you call them, will produce their products more cheaply than what you get from abroad. When we say we are imposing tax on imported furniture from China, it means the Juakali man making his furniture outside a shop in Khalwale will get a market because his furniture will be cheaper than furniture from China, and so on and so forth. When we say, for example, that we will impose tax on imported fish from China, it simply means the same fish from China which was pushing the fishermen from Lake Victoria, from River Nzoia and other Lake Turkana and other sources of fish, now his fish will be more competitive in the market than the one we get from China. Those are the responsible decisions that you have to make when you are leading government. Yes. So to me,
Yes.
the bottom line, as members of parliament, as I urge them to pass this bill, the bottom line is that they should now step up their oversight so that members of the public must then see the value of their taxes. This quickly then brings on board the issue of the salaried people with a pay slip, and the rest of the Kenyans. The people who are talking loudest are people who take home a pay slip. But they forget that everybody also contributes to the tax kitty. Let me give you a key example. The boda industry. The boda industry is a 400 billion shilling per annum economy. So if those little boys are making that contribution into our economy, why would somebody who goes home with a pay slip, and this little boy who is a hustler goes home with no pay slip, but he religiously keeps our economy kicking, why would that person find it so unpalatable to also carry his burden of tax?
All right, we'll come back to that much later, because yes, even if we lower or we slap up the importation with taxes so that we may try and promote the Buy Kenya brand, the issue of power is still a niggling worry for many investors here in the country as well, and that has not really gone down as promised. The task force was put there by President Uhuru Kenyatta. That separate off, we don't know what even the report really says. It was just really highlighting about the independent power producers as well, but we've not seen any prime solution really coming from there. So we are waiting to see what was the preeminent solution that was given going forward. But we were warned as citizens that come June, the price of electricity will go up. So that also will be, in a way, really taking us back with the effort that you're trying to raise taxes to maybe stimulate manufacturing here in the country. But I just want to go back to Makali Mulu to weigh in on that as well, moving forward, because I think now where it has reached, we have also media association owners coming to the fore and saying in 6 years, many Kenyans have not really had any salary raise. And the only wise thing maybe the government will have done is raise taxes that is commensurate also with a salary raise. Because now we'll be actually poking on still the same figure that has been affected by inflation. The 1,000 shillings that you have right now is not 1,000 shillings, but 500 shillings, according to how it's been eroded by the inflationary rate.
You know the bar, and I've said it many times in this forum, that taxation is something we have to live with. You can't do away with the taxation. At the same time, taxation is what we call a good evil. Why is it a good evil? Because for you to be taxed, but at the end of the day, that taxation will be able to improve your lives in terms of structural development, in terms of health sector development, and so many other things. But as Senator Khalwale says, people are taxed. Issues of taxation come annually. Every year, there's always a finance bill, which is discussed in Parliament, and which is discussed by also members of public. And more so now with the new Constitution 2010, it has become like mandatory that you must subject any bill in Parliament to public participation. So the question is, as you tax, there will always be reorganization, taxing this group more than the other group. This group will be more affected by taxation than this other group on an annual basis. And depending on how you organize your whole tax, the tax proposals, then you see how many people are complaining.
Yeah.
Many times what has happened is that a government will tend to tax more people who engage in what we call consumption is not necessary. That's why you see people talk about sin tax. So people will be taxed beer, will tax smoking, and then you see it's only a small group of people might complain. But when you look at them, this current finance bill and the proposals in this tax finance bill, you realize that every group in this country, except very few, and I think the only people who are remaining are Honorable Senator Khalwale and a few people who are in Kenya Kwanza, who might have no much choice to say anything else different from saying we support it. But look, just do a listing of who is complaining. And you realize that the whole economy is complaining, almost every sector. Why are they complaining? Because they are saying, while taxation is a good evil, the thing is, after taxation, there is what we call disposable income. The income you remain with for you to be able to survive. What Kenyans are saying is some of the proposals in this tax bill, finance bill, there are some good proposals like what Senator Khalwale has mentioned, and there are quite a number, but there are about 3 or 4 whose impact at the end of the day will take away all the gains you'll have gained through the good proposals. So at the end of the day, if you are doing a simple accounting, the balance sheet will be negative. You'll have actually made people worse than they are today. And what makes the scenario even worse today is the economic situation we are in. Because when you look at the way this economy is performing in the bar, we all agree that this economy is not doing well. We all agree at the same time that Kenya Kwanza did make promises to Kenyans when they were campaigning. And I've said many times that the only challenge we have is the issue of timing. That the things they are proposing to do would help them achieve their promises. But at the time they are doing it might be the tricky one. And we're asking ourselves, is there a way we could start this to a level that year one, we don't really come with a bang and we are punishing everybody and people are saying, now, you have heard the statement, Punda amechoka. The thing is, people might want to pay. There's an issue of wanted to pay but can't pay. Basically because we are at the lowest level in terms of income. While I agree, some of us who are earn some good salary, like the 3 of us who are seated here, can be taxed more. And I always support that because that's one of the basic principles of taxation. That your taxation principle is progressive. You must tax those who earn more so that they support those who are the pyramid, of the lower part of the pyramid. But you realize that while that is a very good principle, that progressive taxation, and that's why we should pay more ourselves. But look at the number of Kenyans who are in employed sector, the formal sector. Majority of the Kenyans are in the formal sector, like when it's talking about the border. Yes. So the question is, if you tax those who are already employed, are you likely to raise as much revenue as if you brought more people to the tax bracket and more so the so-called the low bracket, so that at the end of the day, everybody pays a fair share of their taxation? Because we are all Kenyans, we live in this country. So everybody should have a fair share of your taxation, that if you want 10 shillings, you can pay 0.5 of a cent, that is half a cent. If I had 100 shillings, I should be able to pay 1 cent. If I had 1 million, I should be able to pay 10 shillings without complaining. So that at the end of the day, you have a structure which brings everybody on board, and then you collect the same amount. The other question I've always asked is, I'm sure they have costed these tax proposals. How much are we collecting as a result of this controversial? To me, the most important, which I think I really need to be looked at, is the issue of the housing levy and the issue of the VAT, the fuel levy, from 8 to 16. Because anytime you touch the fuel levy, anytime you touch the fuel levy, you touch the economy. Because all sectors of the economy are, even the so-called, the hustlers we want to protect and improve their livelihoods, at the end of the day, by just increasing that fuel levy, you're actually making a lot of the things they buy get worse with the time. So to me, this, and that's what I'm saying, the people thinking behind these tax proposals and the reforms being proposed need to ask themselves, do we really have another alternative?
Yes.
Are there alternatives? For example, when you say tax levy, housing levy, I know it's supposed to raise about, is it 270 billion? I've not looked at the figure in terms of the total collection. I don't know what the figures have been worked, but the question is there another way you can raise the same amount and reduce the complaints? Because like you can even see the headline of the Standard today, it says already Ruto is facing what? Rebellion among, say, Mount Kenya MPs. Because there are people who are saying, you fought yes for this bill, and we are going to be with you in the next election.
Indeed.
Yeah, because you represent us.
All right. So, and we've seen those clips doing rounds on social media where people are collecting views from the Wananchi and they say, no, we sent you to represent us. If you pass this finance bill, at least it will work against you. But we will support you. Even if you pass it and you say it's no, we will support you. Next time when you come, that you're seeking your re-election. So let me just come to Mwaura and ask him, because I think he's also, as they always say, ameweka masikio to the ground. Yeah. Maybe things are different for ground as far as this finance bill is concerned as well.
To lose these days.
Yes.
He's not elected. He wants to
Good
say.
to see you, and after a while as well, and we thank you so much as well for making sure that at least you're contributing to this conversation this morning. So what is there any, as they call it, a tectonic shift on the ground as far as this bill is concerned, especially with the Mount Kenya region?
No. I think it's only Gathoni Wambushomba who has made a lot of noise, and I don't comment beyond that.
But I don't think it's the senator of Kirinyaga as well who's...
Let us not... no, Gathoni is the face of that. I don't know of any other person personally.
Maybe there are mamas that are on the ground, but they're still simmering.
But you see, the bar, when you are a leader, you lead from the front.
Amen.
Yeah, you don't go being led by your own people. You see, the aim of Azimio is to make sure that we don't get the momentum as Kenya Kwanza, to get the right kind of taxes. Revenue, let me not say, call it taxes, I say revenue, because taxes generate revenue, so that we can implement our programs. And they're telling us they have the right timing. Which timing? And 2 years from now, they'll be claiming that they want to win the next general election. So it's a difficult task, but it has to be done now. There can never be a better time, because the closer we come to elections, then people lose their objectivity. Of course, we don't expect anything other than the media splashing stories against government. That has been the mantra from the word go. And you can see it's a clear claim to ensure that there is sabotage. So I think the bar, to answer you
really
clearly,
holding this narrative of sabotage
to answer you clearly, I want
from
to
the
tell
beginning
you,
of this year.
No, it is the truth. I mean,
sabotage.
let me ask you. Let me ask you the bar. If it is the sabotage from the media, so be it. That cannot change just because times have gone. But I mean, the agenda remains that it was sustained for years. It is still being sustained because the media is still in denial. And I think the idea is, if we didn't enable Raila to become president, the best thing is to sabotage this government so that it doesn't deliver and we have a better chance of winning. I mean, it's clear. I mean, you cannot say everything that government is doing is wrong. And you amplify the areas that... What is the problem with the housing tax? Let me give you an example that people are not saying. If Isaac Mwaura gives 3% of his basic pay and he has a house, then that money he can recover after 7 years. What is wrong with that? But if Isaac Mwaura's money is not even enough to get him a house, he can actually get that house and rent to own. It's a program. Why are we not talking about that? It has happened in so many other jurisdictions. It happened even during the times of railways. Here, people have been paying 1,000 shillings for 50 years to own their houses. I mean, let us not try to sabotage government just because it is convenient. We know the role of the opposition is to oppose everything government does, but I think we also need a loyal opposition that also has the capacity to say, we also don't know what you are talking about. We are just opposing for the sake of it. That's what they are doing. And I will be very straight on, because these, I mean, I was with some people last week, civil society, who of course are oppositional. And I challenged them. Okay, so you are saying this is wrong. Give us alternatives. They say it is not within their purview to give alternatives. Now, if then your role is just to oppose because it is the currency of the day, I mean, we are not having a conversation. Let us also have our own conversation as Kenya Kwanza. We will push through these bills. But if you came with alternatives that are plausible, in Parliament there are three things that happen. You either delete, you either do with amendments, or you keep it as it is. Those are the three options that you are given for every piece of legislation or proposal that comes with the floor of the House. Now, we are not hearing that. You're only being told how bad each and every proposal is. It cannot be that Kenya Kwanza is getting it all wrong. I mean, are you trying to say, for me, that sounds more like a political choice, where you are saying, no. If you choose between Mwaura and Boni Khalwale, one of them is completely out of order. I mean, that is not a conversation. And so therefore, the Bal, I am not surprised. Even the way you look, unions in strike, that is People Daily. We know who is the owner of People Daily. Root of his taxes, the Standard Media, where we are seated. A fund for every president, then loss of billions, another scandal in the making. You know, there's nothing positive out of it. And I think, no, honestly...
it is just...
no! Let's face it. Let us face the truth.
But if you read the details, of course, you've not even skimmed through
you gave
actually all the details here so that you can try and say, oh, this is another making of the media.
Deval, you are in the media, but it's not you. I'm talking about the media.
But I can't just sit back
I have
denigrate the media. This is a profession that we've dedicated our lives to, and then you just come and...
You could be wrong. You could be right. You could not be wrong. The point is, Deval, I have gone through this. You gave me about 20 minutes when I came, and I was skimming through. I mean, it cannot be all this negative. I have about 15 taxes, which I'm sure Senator Khalwale has explained very well. Positivity about furniture, about fish, about tax moratorium for those, penalty moratoriums for those who have not paid 1.5 trillion to KRA, about ensuring that we manufacture cement locally, about the issues to do with pharmaceuticals, about not taxing older people's pension benefits so that they can contribute to medical care of themselves. All of those issues are very positive. But we are now saying this housing 3% cannot work, cannot stand. On what basis? Because if today the housing scheme works and it generates 5 to 10 jobs per each house built, we will be able to have dealt with the economy. We will have been able to deal with the circulation. But some people cannot agree with that. And we are all being told that it will be graft. Surely, it's like trying to say that the baby will not walk upon being born, yet you're not consulting a medical doctor. It's just some pedestrian kind of talk. I mean, I cannot agree with it. I am positive about this. We're in a hole. The president has refused to borrow over 500,000 shillings, billions or whatever, 500 billion shillings. We cannot finance our economy by just saying things are bad. Now counties have not received money.
All right.
Where are we going to get this kind of money?
Okay.
It's us to finance our own bills.
Even if, before we go the housing way as well, what is happening with the NHIF? Because there's no money that is being disbursed. Looking at the counties, people are decrying that NHIF, they cannot get, healthcare access right now.
There's a cash crunch because there's no money. That's what the money we are looking for through the finance bill. It's as simple as that. There is no genius about it. It's simply because there is no money. And now, can Azimio tell us? And I think we need to face Azimio people head on now. Can they tell us how we are going to finance this money? Budget. Look. Last time when we were here with Director Mureithi, some times back, he was just shouting how we should reduce inflation, as if you just go and declare on the roadside there that now calm down the inflation. I am the Minister of Finance. I command you to calm down. Those are Shakahola-like kind of beliefs. I mean, honestly. So I think Azimio is just playing tricks with us. You may have the currency of popular popular sentiment because now people are angry about the cost of living. That I agree. If it's a popularity contest, that you may win. But the country must run. And you have to make painful decisions. Just like if you had a boil, you have to squeeze the pus and get the medicine. And I've never seen sweet medicine apart from those ones of a child. That is the only one that is kind of sweet and nice. Otherwise, if you are a human being, an adult,
thank you.
It is a bit bitter.
There is no denying that there are sweeteners within the finance bill. And to be fair also to all the dailies, yeah, they're nice sweeteners. They've been highlighted, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's been also splashed on the dailies as well. So it's not that the media has been cherry-picking on only what they think is very contentious as well. And I know if I put up this particular editorial cartoon that Stano has drawn for us as well, I'll get a bashing from Isaac Mwaura again on how there is a very interesting editorial cartoon in the People Daily. UDA manifesto has been dumped there in the trash bin. And now what we're hearing is tutatenga, tutapunguza, tutaleta, tutafanya, tuta. And then we have a broken record there. And he says, I thought he said he'll put the Bible down, not the manifesto.
The manifesto
This is the plan.
The plan has to... There are 5 pillars of the plan, the BAL. This is a very misleading cartoon. Of course, we can see which media house is doing so and who is the owner. Let me tell you. Number 1 is about housing. Number 2 is about health. Number 3 is about agriculture. Number 4 is the digital super highway. The other one is about manufacturing. What has changed? They are the same things. We are talking about housing as one of the 5 pillars of the economy.
Yeah.
So basically, the plan is alive, and it is still in green, yellow, and black, and white.
Fantastic. Let's hear from Boni Khalwale. I think it's a Makali Mulu. It's your turn. It's him, and then we come here.
I think the BAL. Today, I'm very, very surprised with my friend Mwaura. We have been in this show with Mwaura many, many times, and every time we come, we are so keen on objectivity that even as we all know where we aligned, because I know it's Kenya Kwanza, I'm as mayor, that because Kenyans are watching, that we maintain objectivity so that we share facts. Now, some of the things Mwaura is saying today are just political statements. Statements we want to hear when he's on a platform somewhere addressing Kenyans. When you look at this cartoon, what the cartoon is saying basically is that UDA as a manifesto, or Kenya Kwanza, let's use Kenya Kwanza because UDA is just one of the parties in Kenya Kwanza, and that manifesto was very clear what should be achieved. But what Kenyans are saying through this cartoon is, as at now, we've not seen anything in that manifesto which has been implemented. So they are saying it's all futuristic. We are saying we'll do this in the future. And if I were Mwaura, I would cool down and look at what is being said. For example, the BAU, this financial year, which is ending in June, the proposal for collection from tax proposals was 2.1 trillion KRA targeted. This year, what they are targeting KRA to collect is 2.5 trillion, a difference of 400 billion. So if we are to maintain the status quo, say that we are not collecting anything this year, we just maintain the status quo, it means they will still be able to collect 2.1 trillion. The only thing they will lose is 400. That's why we are saying, why can Kenya Kwanza sit down and look at, from the proposal they are making, look at where things are controversial. And I've said, to me, the most important, which I think really need to be looked at, is the issue of the VAT and the housing levy. Why can't we look at these two and see how much we are to collect from these two, the changes we are making? And then ask themselves, is there a way we can get that difference from another source? Either by improving where we think things are working well, or where things are not working. Because the thing is, they are very good proposals, as they say. And we acknowledge there are some, for example, when you talk about the issues of what Khalwale was mentioning, issues of making sure that Kenyans produce locally, we don't import, those are good things. But where then Kenyans are, and if you look at all these demonstrations and all what is happening, it's basically on 2 items, VAT and the housing levy. So are we saying really, these Kenyans who are all over are insane? That they can all decide one day, let's wake up and when Mwaura talks about unions being all in opposition, Mwaura today, if all these guys who are opposing this bill were in opposition, Kenya Kwanza will not be in government. I'm telling you, will have lost the election. Most of the people who are in the streets and you are very strong supporters. People who voted for Kenya Kwanza, believing that their lives will be improved. But they are seeing the way things are today, that things are not working. So I just want to plead with my colleagues that let's just go back. We know the president is really pushing hard that if you talk anything else, you are likely to start having challenges. But I know presidents are there to be advised. It's only people who are in the government who can tell the president that we think this thing is not working, and let's please review it for the sake of Kenyans, because Kenyans can't be blind. Everybody is crying everywhere you go. Even us who are in opposition, we have very easy time. You go home and people just tell you, yesterday I got a call in the night that somebody telling me, we believe you have not changed your mind. Your vote is still no. You see? So the thing is,
Of course, how
even though I'm a leader and I should lead from the front, as Mwaura is saying, but the people I lead, I need to listen to them. That's why you must listen to them. Otherwise, then as a leader, you'll be alone. You'll be isolated out there. Imagine your people behind you, and other people have changed direction, have gone another direction. So to me, really, let's look at this finance bill very, very objectively. As Honorable Khalwale said, it's not the first finance bill since we started in this country. They are always there. People will oppose, but I've never seen this magnitude of opposition in any finance bill. I've been in Parliament, now this is my 11th year in Parliament, continuous, no break. I've never seen this level of opposition to a finance bill. It's just, the magnitude is too high. And that's why I don't agree with him that it's the papers who are firing this up. No. I think Kenya is just saying the truth. And the other thing we need to realize is as time goes also, the Kenyans now we are leading today. The Kenyans we are leading today, and I'm sure my colleagues will agree with me, are also very diligent. There are people who have a lot of information through social media. They're able to access information through printed media as we have it here. So people are very knowledgeable. Actually, anytime you listen to, people are very knowledgeable. And this last night I was listening to there's like a clip circulating where they're saying Kenya imekuwa ngumu sana. Ruto amekataa kuteremsha bei. It's a very short thing, digital creation, the thing they want to tax. Somebody just become creative and come up with a very short slit, something which is very creative. So when you look at what is coming from Kenyans and the young Kenyans, you can see people are very knowledgeable, and we are getting really. So let's plead with my colleagues, because I know all of these two of them are in the kitchen cabinet to help the boss do the right thing.
All right, allow us to take a short break. When I circle back with you, Boni Khalwale, we have the KRA amendment bill as well. And everyone is asking, I know this was on the previous regime, and should we continue maybe shaking it into place with the rebranding of KRA at a time when we are talking about lack of funds? There is a cash crunch, but we want 2.7 billion shillings for the rebranding of KRA from the Kenya Revenue Authority to also Kenya Revenue Services. Should we also be moving on with extension of SGR, 2,700 over kilometers to Kisumu and Malaba at a cost of 2.1 trillion shillings right now, when we're talking about repaying this particular debt that has not been exhausted so far, and also looking at the externalities that we are subjected to by, of course, the shocks in the world. We take a short break. When we circle back, we'll continue with that.
Okay.
All right. You're watching Siasa Fiesta. Don't go away. Much more on the other side of a break.